So hello everyone, welcome back. This is Dr. Geetanjali Pareek, and as I have told you earlier, I just started some program for the IGNOU students. So in the earlier chapter, we had just talked about, or in my earlier video, I just talked to you about cognitive psychology. We have started with the cognitive psychology. What is cognitive psychology? So you just have a brief introduction about it. In this recent video of mine, we will be talking about the research methods in cognitive psychology. So let's get started with it. So just like any other research fields or say research areas, each research field they use a unique kind of their research methods to achieve their various aims. So similarly, cognitive psychology also uses various research methods to achieve their whatever the goal of research they are working upon. Now in this chapter we would be, or in this video we would be discussing in detail about what's the goals of research, and secondly various methods which are used in cognitive psychology. So like any other research fields, cognitive psychologists they also have a direct aim or the goal of doing the research work, and the basic goals that are used in cognitive psychology. First is your data gathering, how you are going to gather the data. Because all these things they influence it. Now once you gather the data, how you are going to analyze that thing, what all techniques you are going to use this. So for that you will be covering your data analysis. Thirdly is the theory development, how you are going to develop the theories. Then the hypothesis formulation. On the basis of the various developmental theories, you just take about that this might be the hypothesis of which we are going to study about it. Then you go test your hypothesis, and then you after testing your hypothesis, now what all in the situations or in which settings you are going to apply those research techniques. Now that is what is being carried out during your cognitive psychology research work. Now to see or to understand how and why, this is mostly the main areas which cognitive psychologists work upon. They are more interested in how and why. It is not only this thing has occurred or this is it, but how it's actually happening, that is very important. And they are mostly seeking ways to describe all these things. Just like any other research methods, cognitive psychologists also utilizes certain methods to achieve their aims or the goals of their research work. So there are various methods for it, and there are 4 different methods. And the first is your laboratory or the controlled experiments. Secondly is your psychobiological research methods, and thirdly is your self-report or case study or the naturalistic settings. Fourth one is your computer simulations and the artificial intelligence. Now each of these methods they have specific advantages and disadvantages. So we are going to study more in detail about this, like how they influence. And so let's start with the first method, and that is the experimental method on human behavior. So in this what happens is that it's mostly conducted in the laboratory or in the field area where you can just study or control these variables. So first thing is that in the experimental controls, many aspects of the experimental situation they are possible. Now basically there are 2 types of variables which are involved in experimental design, and that is first is your independent variable and second is your dependent variable. We will be talking about more in detail in the later classes, but just as an introduction, what are these to give you an idea, we are just going about it. And there is third one more variable which we refer to as irrelevant variable, or you can say so it's with constant variables, which instead they do not have much influence about it and they remain constant. They are not influencing our research designs. So irrelevant variables, you can also refer to them as control variables. So if the person is using experimental method to study, what the person first selects a population, or means to say selects a random sample from a population. For example, now if I had to study regarding certain issues like for example how certain factors affected the COVID patient. Now earlier it would have been different, now because I am just talking about COVID because the COVID is still prevalent. So earlier the situation was different, so the population was something different. Now the population is different. According to researchers, it has been found that 99% of the population had been affected by COVID directly or indirectly. So it now depends different. So from that population you are going to select for example I am going to study on students. how it's going to influence the students. So I will just study or take into individuals the people of that student population. From that students also, which age group or which schools or girls or boys. So they are distinct according to which economic conditions. So there are various factors and which influence. So from that I am going to select certain students or the sample from that. Now sample should not be biased, means to say it should not be according to your wishes and commands. So it should be something which is unbiased. So the psychologists, as such, the cognitive psychologists, they use rigorous methods to control over the experimental conditions. So that is very important. So they and the controlling of the variables is very important. This influence is of the effect of the independent variable. So how the independent, so here we study how the independent variable is affecting our dependent variable on the given population. The second method is a psychobiological research method. Now in this psychobiological research method, there are three categories. Now in first category, what happens is we study the individual brain post-mortem. Post-mortem means to say after his death. So we have studied the person by the CT scan. We have just studied the individual person's brain before, prior to his death, and after his death, how it was influenced. Second method involved study images or showing the structure through your this CAT scan, etc. That how the person with a particular deficit of a certain disorder, how the person's brain is working, or how is it is different from that of a normal. That's why we do CAT scans, etc. to study that how is it. But that's mostly done by the neurologists, and psychologists rarely use that thing. Third technique is for obtaining information from the cerebral processes during your normal performance. Like for example, ECG or your biofeedback method, where means to say the devices have been implanted and the person is asked to do the original work, so whatever regular work, whatever it is, and under different condition, how that the images or the data is being collected or stored, and that is being utilized to under certain activities, how the brain's function was. Now if you have seen under the two means to say the method, that is the experimental method and the psychological biological studies method, here the brain's function was observed under particular conditions or under particular situation, or it was more in controlled form. But if you want to gather in more information or in-depth information about an individual or a person, then we use self-report methods, case studies method, or the naturalistic study method. In self-reports, what happens is that the person's information, the person reports under, for example, I had a very bad feeling, I'm feeling very bad or very low. So what was my conditions at that time, how I was feeling, what all happened during that time that influenced me. So that would be observed. Then secondly is your case study method. In this case study method, as a psychologist, if I want to study certain person like XYZ, whatever the name you may give that person, I will observe that person under all the conditions, so that I get to know why this person reacted in that way, or why this person is having certain problem. Is it actually a problem, or it is just a way or an idea? Third place is under your naturalistic setting. So under naturalistic, what happens is you study an individual, the person does not know like he is being studied. In the other two cases, the person in the first case, self-report, he was reporting himself. In case study method, I was observing and I just told him that person that I would be observing you under certain conditions. In the third situation, what happens is that is in the naturalistic setting, the person is being studied under natural situation. Means so the person does not know I'm observing that person, but it's only the psychologist who knows it, and I would study that person under natural situation. For example, I'm studying a child. Now I will study the person, how that person is actually in the school situation, in the playground situation, or at home. Lastly but not the least, and that is your computer simulation and the artificial intelligence. They are very much in vogue these days. People really are more influenced by the artificial intelligence. It is taking a lot of progress during these times. So under this computer simulation, what is the human structure or the artificial mind is being created, and it's been subjected or it's been studied under different conditions, because the one is the most effect or the is that people believe that computers are nothing but more similar to your human mind. So under particular situation, how they are going to react. So the differentiation between the computer simulation and the artificial intelligence is very low, and they study that under different conditions. So in computer simulation, the researchers, they program computers to imitate given human function or the process, and some researchers have even attempted to create human minds. So there's been a lot of controversies regarding this. Some people say it's God, and there's this, and there are different reasons, but there's still in the progressive stage. It's not been there. Now, if you would have observed, now you would have found that cognitive psychologists, they only just deepen the understanding of cognition through their research work in the cognitive sciences. Now, as such, cognitive science is not just purely cognitive science. It is multidisciplinary in approach. Now, it uses psychobiology, now it uses artificial intelligence, it uses social psychology, anthropology uses linguistics. So it covers lot of information. If you are getting an understanding about cognitive psychologists, you would definitely understand like what all areas they usually cover. So the cognitive psychologists use the ideas and methods to focus on how humans they acquire and use knowledge. Now they also work in collaboration with other psychologists also, for example social psychologists or the engineering psychologists, those who study on the human artificial intelligence, etc. So that was all about your research methods in cognitive psychology. Hope you liked it, and if you liked it, please like, share and subscribe to my channel, so that you have to not to look about it, because we will be covering the entire syllabus for your first year. Now in the next video I would be talking about the domains of cognitive psychology. So meet you soon. Thank you very much.